it's recording now. So yeah, we'll be talking about Juneteenth. I'll be sharing some developmental resources. We're going to share end of year information. I'm going to talk about some pathways to employment. We're going to discuss the steps for returning members, exiting members, what you can do, and then lastly, the living allowance deposit schedule. So yeah, Juneteenth. This is a photograph from one of the first Juneteenth celebrations in Galveston, Texas. So we're going to talk about how to celebrate it and also what it has to do with housing in Kentucky. It has a pretty surprising connection if you don't know already. But firstly, I'll bring up the Emancipation Proclamation. I don't want to do a whole history lesson, so I'll run through it and just try to share the info that I think is a little bit lesser known. But the Emancipation was really messy. It was incredibly complicated. Some Black Kentuckian soldiers were deployed to Texas and were able to witness the first Juneteenth, but when they came back home, their brothers and sisters were still not free. To me, this matters because emancipation came because of the determined actions of enslaved people themselves, not just law. The proclamation bore no mention of the roughly 500,000 people in bondage in the border states of Delaware, Maryland, Missouri, and Kentucky. We were exempt from the proclamation. So a vast majority of enslaved Kentuckians gained their freedom through military service, like 70%. Their families were not included until March 3rd, 1865, and their inclusion happened because there was an expulsion of Black refugees at Camp Nelson in Nicholasville, Kentucky. It was particularly tragic, and we'll talk about it more later. But this is what incentivized Abe Lincoln to include the families of veterans to be free as well. So until the ratification of the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery in December of 1865, this new law was the only means that African American refugees in Kentucky could legally obtain their freedom. So yeah, although it was nationally ratified and that made the slaves free, Kentucky actually didn't ratify the 13th, 14th, or 15th Amendment until 1976, which I found pretty wild. Almost done with the history lesson and on to the interesting stuff. But I really want to highlight that there was not a singular moment when freedom just like descended onto the enslaved people in the United States. Yeah, the shackles of slavery that had been going on for 250 years did not just like suddenly fall away because President Lincoln said so. And because of Kentucky's strategic importance specifically, that's why Abraham Lincoln developed like a very cautious political attitude towards Kentucky, did not apply the proclamation to Kentucky. So many of the enslaved people in those areas escaped to effective freedom as early as May of 1861, but that was really their only path. Even after slavery became technically illegal in all southern states, it still persisted with pro-Confederates, only sort of hushly whispering with other white people about the proclamation to try to hide that information from the slaves so that they wouldn't know. So in Galveston, Texas, a Union general marched in with his troops and announced that all enslaved people were free and that they had been for 2 years. And that's Juneteenth. And then this story specifically is related to Kentucky and Camp Nelson in Nicholasville. So in June of 1864, that is when the racial restrictions are removed on military enlistment. And so Camp Nelson actually became the third largest United States colored troops recruiting center in the entire nation, surpassed only by one in Pennsylvania and New Orleans. So many of the enslaved men were joined by their families, but the army has not made any type of provision for them. And so they were essentially just like refugees camping on the outskirts of Camp Nelson. And they had been sort of shooed away 7 different times. But this eighth instance, about more than 400 were expelled, most of them women and children. This was during a cold snap, and over 100 died. So 3 months later, the expulsion inspired legislation that emancipated the family members as well, and that was signed by President Lincoln on March 3rd, 1865. Also, after this big upheaval, they didn't just make the family members free as well, but they basically established a refugee camp at Camp Nelson for these families. And it had a school and admin building, and there were thousands of people there. So why does this matter? We know that historically discriminatory practices such as redlining, other like housing restrictions, unequal access to housing, loans have really perpetuated racial segregation and inequality. In our jobs, we've done trainings on equal rights and equal housing. And we know that it's HUD's job to educate property managers about these rights. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they follow that. On the next slide, we'll talk about de jure versus de facto law, but that's basically just because a law, it's in writing, just because the law says all men are created equal, that doesn't necessarily make it so. So why does this matter for us as AmeriCorps members in housing services? I think we have a pretty critical role in addressing these disparities. I think our work helps ensure fair housing practices. It's important that we advocate and promote housing equality and support programs that provide safe and affordable housing for everybody. So I think by understanding the historical context of racial discrimination, we can better understand those issues that continue to affect our communities. So yeah, in the left, there's a photo of an early Juneteenth celebration. I learned that the initial celebrations around Juneteenth were originally used to teach newly freed slaves about voting rights and their new ability to be able to vote. Juneteenth is also called Jubilee Days, or there's a couple other names, but it was adopted later in the 19th century as a combination of June and 19th. It was sort of like a barbecue cookout centric gathering where people would put on their best clothes, would play music, play games, and just get together. So here's a little QR code to a podcast and like a radio show that I just found. And it basically traces the history of slavery and how it still impacts the US today, but it does that by specifically analyzing Kentucky, which I think is really interesting. And then on the recap email for this meeting, I'll share links. There are tons of Juneteenth celebrations going on all across the state. In Paducah, and I think like Moorhead and Midway, Louisville, Lexington, everywhere. So that would be a fun like summer shenanigan. But also Juneteenth recipes. There's a lot of interesting symbolism and things to learn through the food that's eaten on Juneteenth. All right, that's it for Juneteenth. If anybody has any comments or questions, I can keep sharing your good vibes. General program updates.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Valerie sent some people just like based on like different regions across the state of Juneteenth programs and everything like that, just some like events that are going on around the state that may be close to you. So we know that Juneteenth is a holiday that our program observes, but take some time to educate or re-educate yourself about the importance of Juneteenth. So if you are interested, kind of look back at some of those emails. I know some of the larger parts of the state are having probably more events and things like that, but we're happy to kind of help and look and locate any that may be close to you if you are interested in doing that on Wednesday, or it may be another day. And if you do, you can log that time under AmeriCorps training. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Also check out like your local Facebook events. There's usually more like local stuff in there. Yeah. Um, so Holly and I have some upcoming out of office days that we wanted to let you all know about. Now we're going to be like flopping, so we'll both be in the office. Like there's not going to be a time where both of us are out, but I will be out Monday through Wednesday of next week, and then Holly will be out July 5th through the 15th. So if you reach out to us, you'll get that email that we're out of office. Just be patient. If it's urgent, you can forward that to whichever one of us is in. But yeah, upcoming holidays, Juneteenth, that's off for members. But like Holly said, if there's some type of celebration, that would be really cool if you could serve an easy and fun way to get more service hours. Also, the 4th of July, Independence Day, that's coming up as well. So, some resources. This is specifically for members near Lexington. It's presented by the Kentucky Fair Housing Coalition. They're the ones that gave the fair housing the two different trainings. They did the 1 hour one for us, but then they also offer the 3 hour extended training that I know some of you took advantage of. So they're really great, really knowledgeable. And this one will be specifically about disability. So I hope to be able to join as well. Other resources. In the top right there, Vote Riders. Just learned about this. It's intended to help people get their identification needed in order to vote. But if you have clients that need IDs, just like generally, like they don't need to promise you that they will vote or anything like that. Vote Riders will pay for them to get those documents, like their birth certificate, ID, social security card, and also coordinate getting them there. So that's a really cool resource to check out. And I think their website, just like voteriders.com, but I'll include the links to all of this information in the recap. There's going to be an AmeriCorps event honoring Pride Month, and also by AmeriCorps, the cultural learning community, to talk about Title IX and things like that, which I think might be interesting to see how that intersects with housing.
Wait, before you go on to this slide, I just want to say too, with the voting resource that Valerie shared, this is not us forcing anyone to vote or anything like that, because that is a prohibited activity. We're just letting you guys know that, hey, this could be a really easy way for some individuals that maybe you are working with that don't have access to these documents that are so important for housing, to kind of slip in and, reach out to them so that they can get these documents. And that could potentially be one of the reasons why they aren't housed yet, or whatever the case may be. So I just wanted to throw that little 2 cents in there. We're not, we always encourage everyone to vote any way that you want to. Obviously, we are not trying to persuade anyone on how they vote.
Yeah, this is a neat little resource. But I also forgot to mention that there's an understanding nonprofits training that'll be coming up on the 26th. And I believe that's sponsored by AmeriCorps, maybe like Vista as well. So that'll be good information. And we'll talk about pathways to employment too in a second. This is a QR code to take you to the YouTube playlist that I made with what I think are some good resources on how to serve the queer population while you're doing your housing services. I think it's important to be self-aware, to be aware of the barriers that clients are facing, So yeah, um, I really value being a lifelong learner. So I guarantee you will learn something from one of these playlists. End of year, July 18th and 19th. The registration for that already closed. So if you registered, we anticipate that you will be attending and we'll be sending out the details for those that will needed to like commute and stay the night in Frankfurt. Um, we'll send you your recognition gift and your certificate of service, that cute stuff if you're not able to make it. But we'll be at the Capitol Plaza Hotel in Frankfurt. To any other, if y'all have any questions about that, feel free to reach out because yeah, it'll be in a month, which is
Oh,
exciting. Go
I'll
ahead.
add. No, you're fine. So I know on the registration we did kind of like a voting,
Yeah.
who, basically everybody was voting for either having a catered lunch or going to a group lunch at a local restaurant. The local restaurant won. So we are super excited. I love trying new restaurants. There's actually a new restaurant in downtown Frankfurt called, what's it called, Valerie?
I think
Brown
Brown
Barrel.
Barrel,
Yeah, Brown
it's
Barrel.
Brown Barrel.
Um, Anyways, they have a really good menu. We will include the menu whenever we send out those logistics and everything. So, yeah, we're really excited about that. But for those of you that are attending, we will be, once we wrap up for the day and everything, we'll head to have, a meal together. So,
Yeah. It is, they do have a good menu and it's like a build your own sandwich situation basically. So we figured everybody will find something that they like. Another theme of this month, the AmeriCorps theme is Pathways to Employment. So that QR code, if you scan it, will take you to probably one of the best AmeriCorps resources, in my opinion. Um, there's two different links. It'll take you to employers of national service and schools of national service. So if right now you're looking at exiting and you're thinking about going back to school, um, that will give you a list of schools that will give any number of benefits for AmeriCorps alums. Some of them will match your education award. Some of them, it's just like an application fee waiver. Others, it's a lot more. A lot of them are like schools of social work or other schools in public service. So that's a great resource to check out just to see what's out there because there are online programs as well as employers of national service. So both these employers and schools have like applied and expressed interest in wanting to have like host AmeriCorps alums at their universities or businesses. So these are cool things to get in touch with. And then in the middle here is a neat resource I found from Georgetown University's Career Center. They have a specific public service career section that has ample information, ample resources of like where to look, videos, like it says the federal hiring videos. I'll be sending out a video to Vistas on how to use your non-competitive eligibility. But yeah, if you're interested in like applying to something on usajobs.com or working in government, um, I don't even try to like understand the process of getting a federal job. So that's if that's something you're interested in, that's something to start figuring out because I know it's not easy. But yeah, also there's a nonprofit section and other public service careers. So I would really recommend checking that out. And then on the right there is a podcast and it's AmeriCorps Alumni Connections. And each episode, they interview an AmeriCorps alumni, and that alumni talks about where they are now, how they got there, how their AmeriCorps service helped them get there. So I think that's a pretty neat resource just to try to get some ideas of like potential organizations or how people transitioned out of service. All right, general program updates and reminders. This is for direct service members, so not Vistas. The reporting reminder, please send those my way. I'm going to be checking in with members as we're closing up on the program year. And I'm going to be asking for the service forms. I need to enter all of that data, and it's important for us to show the amazing impact that I know we're having. So be sure to submit those. If you have any questions at all, any hesitancy, like do not hesitate to ask. Yeah, if it's taken a while, like not a big deal, just ask me so we can get it sorted out. Also, we're recruiting for the next program year. So site supervisors at all of the sites that have been awarded slots for the next year, they've received guidance on what we need from them in order for their member to return for another year, and that is submitting a recommendation form to us. So start those conversations or get some clear answers in these coming weeks. If you know anybody that might be interested and has a heart for housing, like we all do in Homes for All, please send them my way. We'd love to talk with them about the program. Even if they're not a perfect fit for Homes for All, there might be other AmeriCorps opportunities like all across the state. We are currently looking for members in Moorhead, Hazard, Northern Kentucky, where we've done our spring service project with Honk, Lexington, Frankfort, and Ashland. So if you know anybody in those areas, forward them our way. And if you're returning for another year, if that's your plan, your site must confirm that with us. Because then we need to make sure that like at end of year, we get enrollment paperwork moving. And if not, then you'll have to be exited by that time. Oh, nice, Karen. I'm glad to hear Henderson had a Juneteenth celebration. Yeah, some already happened. But hopefully there'll be some later this month too. Just reading the chat. Okay, back to presentation. Update on the evaluation questionnaire from McNary Group. You all received the first one, but keep an eye out for the second. It'll be sent to you to be completed at end of year training. And after you submit this totally anonymous questionnaire, you can tell us that you did the questionnaire, and I'll send you the gear form so that you can pick out whatever piece of gear that you want for us to send to you. And we can give that to you at end of year or mail it.
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing about the questionnaire. So, the second questionnaire. So, if you are at the end of your training in person, we will make some time for you to be able to complete that. We'll have computers. I'm sure you will be able to reach the Google link to the questionnaire on your phone. Again, we're in no way do we don't play any part in like reading the responses that you guys submit. We just have to ensure that the information is getting to you. So if you're with us, we'll set aside some time for you to do that for us. If you completed the first questionnaire. If you are not joining us in person, you will receive an email as well. So our people that will be with us in Frankfort in July, if for some reason you do it when we send out that email, that's totally fine. You won't have to do it in person with us. There's just that option to wait if you want to while you're with us. If it's just easier for you to remember when you're with us, that's totally fine. So it's not like you do both of them. Just if you get the email, you see it, you do it quickly, then you don't have to do it when you're with us at end of year. It's just another way for us when we are together to kind of get this information that our evaluators need.
Yeah, if y'all are close to completing your hours, be sure to let us know because you basically have two options. If you want to end your service year early, like once your hours are done, for example, if you finished your hours this week, you need to notify us that your last day would be this Friday. And that would allow us to tell you when you'll get your last living allowance, and also so we can send you the next steps for exiting. Because if you recall, when you first enrolled in the program and you did the little like citizenship verification on myAmericorps.gov, you'll have to go back on there to complete an exit form. Um, Second option, if you don't want to stop serving before, you can continue to serve once your hours are met, and you can continue to receive your living allowance deposit. The program year doesn't technically end until July 31st, right? So you can keep serving until then. And if you're returning, it'll just continue at the start, August 1st, the 24-25 program year. Um, or if you want a little vacay before, you're welcome to do that too. You just wouldn't be receiving the living allowance. And yeah, so if you do serve until July 31st, your last living allowance deposit will be on July 19th. And you can see the living allowance deposit schedule in the member service agreement, the little enrollment packet. It is on like the last page. I
Guys,
think
I
we're
will,
almost done here. Go
yeah,
ahead.
hold on just a second. AmeriCorps members, so like Valerie was talking about those two options, if for some reason you finish your hours on the, say, like July 14th, or 15th, you're still going to receive the July 19th living allowance deposit. Okay. You just have to serve within that time frame to receive that last living allowance. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me and Valerie. But again, yeah, this isn't us. Like, I don't want you guys to think like we're pushing you guys out or anything like that, because we're not. We're just letting you know that you have two options. So you can 100% serve more than 1,700 hours and still get your full, that max annual living allowance amount that that's in all of your paperwork. So if you are, a full-time member, that 20,000 amount. So again, yeah. And also your sites expect you to be there until July 31st, or, towards the end of July. So just keep that in mind too. Or if you are getting close to completing your hours, and, yeah, like Valerie said, start having those conversations with your sites now, or your supervisor now, and also loop us in, because we need to know that. On the flip side, not just for like payroll, we have to know when your exact date is, like your last date, because we only have so many days to exit you from the program. So that's very important. Whether you're returning or not, we still need to know that last day. We go over this again in July whenever we're at our end of year training, but we want to talk about it now. So thanks, Valerie.
Yeah. And that also reminds me, like one other thing, this is for direct service members. If you're coming close on your hours, like don't hesitate to reach out to me and we can figure out a plan. Um, yeah, there's a lot of strategies or solutions that we could figure out. So there are about 6 weeks left. So if you go on America Learns and you see your average hours needed, in order to achieve your education award, divide that by 6, and that'll tell you how many hours per week you need to stay on track in order to get your education award. That's what matters most to us. Impact stories, they'll be due on the 20th. So coming up, we'll share the Google link. But these stories are important because it's not just to like make us feel good about our program. We use this when talking with Vista, with our portfolio manager, when talking with policy officials and other organizations, because numbers only do so much when trying to share the impact of what you all are doing. So yeah, sharing some stories and adding a human element to those numbers is so valuable and really, really appreciated. I think we're done.
Yeah, I just have one other thing that I'd like to share with Vista members, that I just thought about too. So Vista members who are thinking about returning or in early spring, we sent out an intent to apply to our current partners um, of, of just basically what this timeline is going to be for Vista projects. So basically, I'm hoping this is not new information, and this should have been shared a long time with you guys from your sites. So Vista, if you say your term of service ends at the end of August, we will not be able to enroll you back into your project until sorry, no, January 2025. And that's because Vista had a huge federal budget cut. And so they're having to wait. They're having to wait. They have this whole plan in place so that projects can continue. So you will not be enrolled once you are done at the end of August, or if you end in early August, or if you end in October, we will not be able to do like a re-enrollment until January 2025. So if you or your site supervisor have any questions about that, you can let us know. Our partner site application that your supervisors or someone from the organization that you're serving at will submit in August. So that will open in August. This information has been shared with partner sites who currently have projects with us. But yeah, we know that that throws things off. It's not ideal for us either, but we're just having to kind of go with it and shift and do what we can. So yeah, like if you have any questions about that, you or your site supervisor or whoever submits the partner site application, can call me and we can talk about it. So, but yeah, basically once you hit your end date for Vista, everything is on pause until January 2025, unfortunately. And that's some really crappy news that we had to receive from Vista. So yeah, if anybody has any questions about that, I'll answer as best as I can with what information Vista shares with us.